All right, how you guys doing? Kyle Brown here, CEO of Fit 365 Wellness Sage. I'm here with my good buddy Scott Olsen. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Kyle. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm happy that you're joining me for this fun little series. So, if you haven't seen any of these other videos, this is a fun little from transforming from fear to fit series that we put together for all of our fellow fans of our Fit 365 shakes and members of our community that we're really pushing. And I want to start first and foremost, Scott, by introducing you as more than just Scott. So you are not only Scott, but you are also the guy who everybody goes to learn how to breathe well, to move well, to feel really good. And I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about your background first. So first and foremost, Scott Olsen is a biomechanics and movement specialist with a background in Chinese sports medicine, fascia, and Qigong therapy. For 20 years, he's helped competitive athletes and active people overcome chronic pain by retraining breath, posture, and movement patterns. Yeah, sit up a little taller. He is based in La Jolla, California, at his clinic Emphasis Wellness. So the way I like to describe Scott, because he's done a lot of work on me personally, and we've had great fun trades going on with fitness and rehabilitative stuff, is just a true definition of East meets West. And a lot of times people think that when you start dealing with people who understand and have mastered uh, things related to uh, energy, breath work, Asian culture, Bagua, one of his great specialties, that you would see a really old, slow talking Chinese man. But no, the world works in mysterious ways. And Scott has had just some really cool life stories and actually spent a ton of time out in China, really studying and learning from some masters for a very, very long time. He was a fellow weird kid like myself, I know, which is awesome. And weird is a synonym for absolutely epic, because a lot of the crazy things that we get into as a kid turn out to be some of the coolest things to know as an adult. But Scott, I'd love to start first and foremost. We really have a lot of people right now in a state of unknowing. And I know on our basic human needs, we have this, need for certainty, this need for uncertainty. And I think we're getting at a point now where people are starting to get fed up with the uncertainty and the misinformation and the lack of understanding of sort of how to go about our days. And just I'm watching people feel like they're in cages, so to speak, instead of just feeling like they're at home and connect with their family. They may mention that a little bit, but I'm watching people get a little rattled.
Yeah.
And I think you are an absolute expert at getting back to centered. So I would love to sort of chat first and foremost about your experience right now with getting yourself centered and practicing what you preach, because your practice is up and running. And you also have a wife who's got a very important job at the top naturopathic medical school in the world, Bastyr, and you're go, 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 but also able to keep centered, but in practice. So I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about, how you're experiencing this whole process.
Yeah. All right. Well, everything we do is navigating, as you're saying, navigating the uncertainty, but also navigating our choices and our daily habits. A lot of those are conscious. We can label them, we can think about them, and yet so many day to day are unconscious. We just let them slip by as an automatic behavior. So realistically, I've been under a lot of stress. And I mentioned to you before the call that I've been so busy, also so tired. So when I know I'm going through this period, this type of period in my life, whether during this experience, the pandemic we're experiencing, the quarantine, or past experiences of tremendous stress or conflict, I know I actually have to give more to my practice of centering.
Yeah.
That's when I have to give more to my practice of movement, of breath, sometimes as simple as sitting. And it's, let me just say, there's nothing passive or small about some of these practices that are often labeled esoteric.
Right.
in our society, they're labeled esoteric because they're just not common, not in today's world. And yet, if I think of how many cultures, how many philosophies, even how many religions of different parts of the world actually emphasize prayer, gratitude, breath, having a quiet mind, giving, acts of charity or altruism, these things have a profound impact on how our mind and how our nervous system behave.
Right.
So in the midst of pivoting and navigating and being tired, I have to commit more to my practices. They happen to be Bagua, you mentioned a martial art. They happen to be Qigong and breathwork. But, you know, one of the things I can say simply is, if I'm willing to face something that's challenging and accomplish it, the other parts of life's uncertainty and the other great challenges, they don't affect me as much as they could.
Absolutely.
So my commitment, which isn't always every day or every hour, but my commitment to pausing a moment, reflecting, thinking forward, thinking back, those, let's say, accepting that as a practice, as a challenge, as a consciousness, it gives me a lot of room to search for that center and to not be as buffeted by the winds of what's going on.
Yeah. I love it. And you know, a lot of people push the ideas of creating your daily habits and your morning rituals and all of that stuff, which I know we're big fans of. However, that to me is beginner level. Expert level, world-class level, like is tuning in to the now. And it's not about just making these things unconscious habits. It's about making everything a conscious practice and tuning into the idea of conscious awareness. I know you've done a beautiful job that with many of those things, but for an example, for those listening, if somebody is normally they train super hard and they're going, you know, an hour of weights and then another hour of cardio a day in the gym, and they're crushing it and killing it under normal circumstances and not much stressors going on in their life. And then all of a sudden they get quarantined and they have their kids at home and they've got all these stressors going on and their nervous system is taxed. The last thing that they need to be doing is overtaxing their nervous system. They need more of the yin energy. And I know you have a great understanding of the balance between, you know, masculine, feminine, stress and rest for growth. So tell me a little bit about, you know, what you studied and you'd experienced, and maybe help everybody understand that maybe at a little bit deeper, more profound level.
So one of the ways to talk about this dynamic is the yin yang of Chinese medical theory, Chinese philosophy. And there's an important distinction. If anyone listening can picture this classic, what's often called the Tai Chi symbol, you have the actual circle, and within that is a curve and then two small dots, one dark, one light. And that's reflecting something. It's reflecting that yin yang, or what we'll call masculine, feminine, dark, light. It's not as simple as binary. It's not as simple as either or. It's actually a cosmology, a way of thinking about the world and thinking about our body that says within the thing called yang is a thing called yin. The more we go one direction, the more we're able to get closer to something that is building, that is actually part of the opposite.
Yes.
It's this thing that you could spend a lifetime thinking about the principles of yin yang, and you can still discover along the way. So that's just one thing to put that in a framework. Is it's not as simple as polarity. It's as simple as in our world, in our existence, and in this universe, that which seems to be one end of the spectrum is containing part of the other side.
Yes.
So thinking about athletes for a moment, thinking about an intensity a lot of people can picture, which is doing a hard workout. and escalating the heartbeat, escalating maybe the breath. Well, it's not as simple as, can we push hard and give ourselves a minute to recover and expect the same level of performance? I wish it were that simple. But one of the skills that we need to learn in this lifetime is a skill to listen. And this is something, again, drawing upon classical Chinese language for a moment. The word to listen, or ting, is something I teach a lot in my classes with my athletes and professionals that I work with. But the old character is the concept of the ear, the radical of the ear in the Chinese calligraphy, on the ground. Mm. And so this word suggests something, and it suggests what our ability to listen is as if we're putting the ear to the ground and listening to the vibration of something that's coming or something that's far away.
Love it.
So that, again, is, you could spend a lifetime mulling that over, exploring that in different ways, asking questions about that, and you will constantly be enriched by the answers and the discoveries. So that athlete who is hoping a minute is enough time to recover, or hoping that maybe they got burned out one day, so maybe they'll take a day off and then hit it hard the next day. For a machine, that should be good enough, but we're more than machines. And so if we really want to honor where we are at any age, 30, 50, 70, we have to apply the skill of listening to then ask ourselves, are we ready again for this intensity? And here's the trick. Even if we're not ready, even if we choose to put it off, let's say, we still have to show up. We still have to commit. And again, even in that, let's say, searching for yin, searching for recovery, it's not as easy as either or, yes or no. It's, okay, if I am going to put more into recovering, if I'm going to listen to where my body is, well, what are the next steps? What's the next feedback loop that's going to help me recover even better? So yeah, I mean, we have a lifetime of asking these questions. I was just fortunate enough to experience some traditions and martial arts and breathwork, et cetera, that had been around for so long that maybe they had a few more answers than what I'd found in modern society.
Mm-hmm. And I think the beauty is you found these and you've been able to take them, and you have a way of taking these theories that many may consider esoteric and making them practical, tangible, and usable regardless of the situation. I'd love to go into one of those right now.
Yeah.
Which is, I saw you share a really cool idea related to the breath. So many people right now are covered up with masks, thinking like, I need something tangible to make me feel like I'm not going to get sick, when there's so many different philosophies behind the mask, the use of the mask. One of them being that doing cardiovascular exercise with the mask on may not be the best for your own internal system. But I definitely do respect the idea of a mask, that if you have it and don't know you have it, that you could be keeping yourself from passing that on to somebody else, more looking at us all from a sense of oneness. But if you are wearing masks, and let's say you are out and about and doing something, tell me a little bit about your breathwork, and maybe push us through an example. I'd love to go through it with you.
Okay. So first, here we are right now at a point in time where, by wearing a face mask, we have a chance to protect others. Yep. And we may even have a chance to protect ourselves. So, and it's not just about where we are in society. For anyone who's gone through a lifetime of challenges, conflict, hospitals, war zones, who knows, there are construction sites. We're trying to use the tools that make sense for the time, that makes sense for that application. Well, here's this interesting thing for if anyone who can know what it's like to wear a mask and know what it's like to therefore have some restriction to how they breathe, either in or out. There's a lot of people who are effectively breathing as if they've been wearing a mask for years.
Yes.
So that's a big thing to dissect, just that. And now if we look at those of us who wearing a mask is a novel experience, well, as with anything, we adapt to the tool, we adapt to the experience. But the question is, can we adapt more consciously and hopefully more effectively for our health and our energy level? So here's what happens. When people have restricted airflow, let's say through thick fabric, they're more likely to breathe from their neck, what is commonly called shallow breathing or chest breathing. And there's a reason why this is perfectly logical. The harder it is to breathe, the less likely you're going to take a big breath. Because a big breath is way too much effort. And in the case of a mask, it might actually pull the mask in. So you have to breathe in a way that makes sense with the tool, whether you're scuba diving or walking around with a face mask. So the trick is, A, how do we breathe better with the tool, the mask? And B, how do we make sure that we're breathing well the rest of the day instead of taking on this new pattern that then cements something that can really affect our health later on?
Yes.
So all that to say is there's a technique I share. I often call that this technique is opera hands. So I'm going to just pull my hands up into the frame. Old opera singers, and you'll still see some today, would clasp their hands below their abdomen, below their rib cage, and it would help them project their voice, especially to a huge stage, a huge audience. So this is a classic example where we're using a technique that is, in this case, clasping our hands together, and it's helping activate some postural muscles and activating some muscles that support a healthy breath. So let's see if I can get myself in the frame. Let's see if this is going to work out. So again, this opera hands technique, we're clasping the hands together, but we're holding them somewhat low. And this is a chance where the shoulders are back and down, and we're just gently, gently pulling the hands apart. And we're gently pressing the elbows down or pressing the shoulders down. Without any other instruction, Kyle, just take a good breath with that. Do you feel any difference in your rib cage, your back, your armpit?
Oh, absolutely. So my scapula, my shoulder blades went back and down, my rib cage elevated, and when I took a nice deep breath, it went all through my diaphragm, and my stomach extended like a balloon.
Yeah.
Or like the average person's meal in quarantine.
Exactly. So this is a huge opportunity because whether or not we're taking a deep breath, the question is, can we let our rib cage and can we let our lungs expand from a 3-dimension concept and not a 1-dimension concept? So if we're not careful, whether we're breathing from our neck or we're breathing because maybe we're hunched and collapsed, we're not using these muscles that should be supporting our rib cage, our diaphragm, our lungs. And yet with this simple technique, we're just gently pulling apart, we're gently pushing down, and maybe even pulling back. Just small little cues, but with this little technique where if I know that's even possible, that even with a mask on, I can take a breath and it feels better. My brain is getting more oxygen per breath. That's a big opportunity. Maybe I'm stressed. Maybe I have asthma or other reasons for difficulty breathing. And this little cue can inform my body, oh, wait, there's a posture, there's a shape, there's a position that will allow me to breathe better. So that's a huge win for people.
It's a huge win, and I love it because what happens is all too often when people are out and about right now, they are operating from a place of fear. So they're in a fight or flight mode. They're thinking, I'm out, I'm getting my groceries or whatever it is, and the last thing I want to do is catch COVID. So their heart rate's elevated, and all they're doing is getting into an unconscious, fight or flight attack mode. I really think by simply creating that conscious awareness, it's going to create a sense of internal safety.
You're right. And your language is so spot on, because it's not as simple as our thoughts affect our body, though we know there's a strong relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's also this piece where our body is affecting our thoughts, our body,
Yep.
the shape, the position, the response, the threat. So if our nervous system doesn't feel safe, everything about our health and about our day will change. So anytime we can use a tool to let the nervous system says, oh, wait, I know where the ground is. Oh, wait, I can take that next breath. It's such a big opportunity for people.
It's just like the as above, so below ideology that it just works both ways, right? Just like yin yang, which is how you think can affect your physiology, but conversely, how you do your physiology can affect the way you think.
Yep.
Understanding that it goes both ways. And that's a perfect example of it. And what an awesome tool that you can take, that you can check yourself in. Now, maybe don't do that when you're holding both your grocery bags.
Nice.
Do that in your car before you walk in the door is probably a pretty good idea, just to get yourself centered. The beauty is, I like to use the idea that nothing good can ever be created from a sense of fear, and the best stuff is created from a place of power. So simply centering yourself before you go run the errand in, the chances that you're going to be putting out a good energy, getting the things that you want out of that experience are so much greater. If you get yourself into a centered place, you say, okay, now I'm going to go into this grocery store. And this experience, even though this is a small experience, it's a big experience, which is a perfect example of what you're talking about being present in the moment and practicing versus just knowing something, which is getting yourself centered and then visualizing the experience of, I'm going to the grocery store now, I'm going to go get my groceries, and this is all going to go great. Mm-hmm. This is all going to be smooth. It's going to go well. Versus, oh my God, I don't want to catch anything. I don't want anyone to cough on me. I don't want to bump into anybody like this, right? Any experience in life, all the way from a big exam to a speech, to a job interview, to working with a client, to, you name it, all the way down to getting your groceries. This to me is a perfect time to practice the art of intention. And I think the art of intention is at the forefront of your entire physiology. So I would love to talk, besides just the breath, I'd love to talk about some of the movement pattern stuff and the body mechanical stuff that I know you're just a wizard at. You've helped my body with mechanical stuff so many times. And I'd love to dig into the problem that right now we're navigating a little bit different territory. People are working at home. They're not used to it. They're dealing with their kids running around. They're not used to it. And they're catching themselves sitting even more than before, and in more awkward positions than before. From a physiological standpoint, what types of things are you seeing, and what types of advice can you give people to catch themselves and start moving momentum in the right direction?
Yeah. If I look back at my career, I've spent the most time looking at movement patterns that undermine people's ability to heal. And those movement patterns might be as simple as how we walk, how we get out of a chair, but they also might be movement patterns that are intrinsic to the body. How is the rib cage moving? Well, that breath technique I just shared with you, it changes how the rib cage can move. And a lot of people were never taught that. They were never shown that the rib cage is this dynamic structure. And those intrinsic movements might even affect how the organs are moving, how they're suspended in space, or how our breath is gently massaging or creating motion throughout the body, ideally.
Right.
So to answer the question is, what am I seeing more of? A lot of inflammation and a lot of issues around health. We know, well, that's the food we eat, it's the air we breathe, but it's also very much how we hold ourselves. And so when I see people doing countless Zoom meetings or in their home environment for days at a time in ways they're not expecting, they've lost a certain movement vocabulary and a certain, let's say, openness or shape, a robustness that would often be in their body.
Yes.
And we could call that simply their body is starting to collapse, especially if they're sitting all the time, whether it's Netflix or teaching your kids how to do a math problem. If we don't have enough variety in our movement, there becomes a problem.
Absolutely.
So for me, meanwhile, this can translate to eventually tendon issues, joint issues, aches and pains that people weren't having before. The goal, let's say, is intrinsic movement. And that's going to happen naturally with good exercise, with a long walk. But if you're taking those components away, then now, mind you, some people can follow a workout or on YouTube or Zoom. It's not that there are no options. But when we do these things with fewer and fewer frequency, then the bigger question is, how do we create movement through the body?
Yes.
And I would go so far as to say breathing well is one of the biggest opportunities.
I love it.
So I'm going to lay out this as an example. I have put a lot of time in the last 3 months into taking cold showers. We were talking about this a little bit. And first off, from a longevity perspective, I recommend to anyone in the world to, after they take a shower, to do a 30-second cold rinse to the best of your capacity. Maybe it's completely cold, maybe it's not, but think of how much of a habit we've gotten into in modern society of being comfortable with temperature. This can create a lot of problems from an internal thermostat level where we should be resilient, we should be dynamic in response. But if we're constantly in a controlled temperature, problems happen.
Right.
So picture for a moment, even if it's been years, standing in front of a cold shower, being under a cold waterfall, being in a cold river, any of those experiences, our body will naturally open up to respond to the stimulus. Therein is something so powerful for human health. Because even if you're just imagining the sensation, the effort to breathe is opening up tissue and blood flow in ways that have been neglected for some of us for years.
Right. Love it.
So I'm a big fan. However we do it, we can do it through Qigong, we can do it through yoga, we can do it through exercise. But essentially, you can ask yourself the question, if I'm about to go for the run or do my training or do this sequence, what if I held my body as if it's taking this massive breath against the cold? Your posture will change. What if I held my body as if I'm acting from a place of love? It's hard to act from a place of massive compassion and love when you're really closed up and collapsed.
Oh, well put.
So we get to play with some of those things.
I love it. I love it. I want to riff on that for a minute. Hold your body coming from a place of. So I want to dig into Bagua just for a sec, just because I think it's fascinating. Specifically, one of the times you and I were together, you were showing me how with Bagua, the way your body moves, it mimicking different animals and the movement patterns and the idea of the energy. You want to give just a quick example? It doesn't have to be talent show worthy, but maybe give everybody just a quick example of maybe those philosophies of movement in action in replication. I'd love to dial into that a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know if this will convey on camera very well, but at the very least, let me get my hands involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept, I had the good fortune of training something called Yin style Bagua. And it's so profound in the level of knowledge and the level of exploration that I really think it's one of those world gems. And it has a medical aspect, it has a martial aspect, but inherently it decided to create a series of movements, a series of trainings and conditionings that fit under the category of different animal systems, as you had just said. So one of the animal systems is lion. And let's just be really clear about a lion compared to every other animal predator. The way a lion moves is completely expanded, interlocking, and fast. A lion isn't trying to be tricky like a bobcat would, or trying to be kind of winding in like a snake would. So a lion, if we're training a lion, if we're conditioning the body and the fascia, it's this expanded, open, just interlocking concept. And so that's often considered the first level of training, because most people need to learn, especially in martial arts, they need to learn to connect their whole body.
Right.
The lion is just one of the 8 animals. And so what they looked at is, for example, the rooster, which is incredibly fast and vicious. It's very heart-centered. It's in fact very brave, and it has stomping with the legs. It has aggressive kind of shooting out of the arms and hands. It's something that's just crisp and bold, but not at all like a lion. And we can shift to monkey, and monkey is this very clever, very enfolding, closing in. So a monkey loves to steal stuff, straight out of your hand if you're eating fruit. And so as we train the classic kind of monkey approach in Bagua, what we're really working on is using our legs to pull everything down. And so that's something that Bagua does really well, which is it asks the question, what is the lower body doing? What's the upper body doing? Are the joints connected? Are they disconnected? And so we have Phoenix, it's representing the birds, let's say cranes. So a lot of movement through the arm, a lot of big fanning, whirlwind type movements. Well, Phoenix actually trains something that's disconnected. So I'm letting the shoulder be a little loose, so that if I'm about to deliver a strike, exactly, you're getting a whipping power.
Love it.
So Bagua just keeps playing with this. What bear is different, and unicorn is different. It's this reversing the body. It's disappearing more like a ghost. So Bagua is a chance to train the body from completely different realms of conditioning, connecting, and disconnecting. And inherently, it taught me so much about the human body, and therefore also how to fix problems in the body.
I love it. I love it. The only animal representation most of us know is chicken dance. And the beauty of the chicken dance, even just when you hear chicken dances, think about what it does to your brain instantly. When I say the words, the chicken dance, you immediately, most people are going to smile. They're going to laugh. They're going to go into a moment and a memory, and they're going to think, well, that's really silly. But what does that do? That takes you out of fight or flight and into a place of like, I'm safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Understanding the power of our ability, regardless if we can control our external environment, but to control our internal environment by shifting our focus, is to me the most important lesson of what's going on right now. Because, being somebody who's of Jewish ancestry and knowing 6 million people have passed in the Holocaust, and watching what so many of my ancestors went through, and hearing people complain about the fact that, oh my God, I can't go get my hair cut, is a bit laughable in the sense of resiliency. And I know the most important piece, if you look at Viktor Frankl's work, if you look at Anne Frank's work, if you look at any of the work that is profound over time, is the essential opportunity we have right now to change our inner state. And just imagine if all of us were as deliberate as somebody like Scott, that you can put it into practice, shift your internal state regardless of your external circumstances, then it doesn't matter. You don't need to be sitting here. I always say, it's really easy to be this spiritual badass and saying positive affirmations and talking Zen and everything when you're in the midst of a place where you feel, I'm in the land of the free and the home of the brave and everything is carefree and I can do what I want, when I want, and how I want. But how are you when you have to practice those things when you can't? Are you still looking out for others, a kind, a gracious, a compassionate, and empathetic person? Or are you in a moment of just so bitching, complaining of your life and your rights being taken from you? And that to me speaks volumes. So what I would love to know is, you've done a beautiful job of just being real. And what I mean by that is, you're not sitting here like so many people saying like every moment is awesome. You're saying, hey, I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm pivoting my business. In spite of those facts that I feel these emotions and I let them go, I am therefore now adapting to those circumstances. To me, that's the ultimate level of tuned in. What would you recommend somebody doing who's watching this right now and they're sitting here going like, I hear this idea of being tuned in, but what the heck are you even talking about? Like, I know I don't want to be panicked, but I'm panicked. How do you usually advise people to tune in?
So one of the biggest obstacles to our ability to be present in this world is our ego. And by that, I mean, essentially, it's the thousands of assumptions we've made since we were small that eventually became internalized into the structure of, I am this thing and I am separate from the world. So for anyone who wants to find their center, who wants to invite a more profound practice in their body, I really encourage you to, even for a moment, try to leave your ego at the door. We have a part of us that is a really powerful part of us, and it's often called the observer. It's the thing which is different than the assumption mind or the monkey mind. And it's often what will naturally happen when we're stepping back to see what's happening in front of us, to hopefully listen and observe and not just react. But we can turn that light into ourselves, onto ourselves, and just observe and hopefully not judge and hopefully let that go. Because even if that's a movie that's still playing at the same time, we don't have to let that part, that ego part, that attachment part, be the whole experience. Even in this exchange, we're using technology and a computer. There are times when Kyle or myself have to be front and center. We have to dominate the screen because this one thing is so very important. And yet at the same time, we have these other windows that are open. And it's a gallery effect. It's on the laptop. It's in our lives. And so we have to get a little bit ahead of knowing that we can choose when to see the gallery and when to choose that single screen, when to multitask and when to say, okay, I'm going to, even for a moment, let go of these judgments and try to find the ground. And by that, I mean, what does it feel like to even press your feet into the ground? That's more than what most people do throughout the day. Try to find your center of movement, your center of compassion. Just take a moment and put that ego aside and try to listen with your inhale. It's not always about breathing more or about breathing better. And yet here's this thing that literally keeps us alive. And what if we treated it as something valuable? And what if we slowed down enough to listen to our inhale? And I guarantee you, for those of you who do, to take even a moment to do that, you've already come closer to center, come closer to calming down a nervous system that's buffeted by stress. And it's a whole world of opportunity.
I love it. I love it, and profound. And I really think right now, so many people and I hope everybody listening to this that does come across this understands the power that while so many people are focusing on a way out and a complaint and a source of their problems, that they're missing out on the opportunity to realize as a society, right? What one does, all does, right? We are mirrors of one another. But as a species, we've kind of been sent to timeout, right? We really haven't been doing the best job. I saw a statistic that said this was the first March we had without a school shooting because nobody's in school since 2002. It's a long time ago, 18 years ago. That's how long it takes to create an adult. And if instead of complaining and figuring a way out, if you can look at this as a mulligan and an opportunity to say, you know what? Nature's just cruising just fine right now. They weren't sent to their rooms. They weren't given a timeout. They're in a total state of flow and doing life the way that nature was intended, right? The rest of the animal kingdom. But this one animal, the human being, is being forced into a timeout globally for the first time in our modern history. Even in world wars, it was nothing like this. So if we can take that opportunity and say, all right, I get my do-over, I get my mulligan, just like in golf, right? What can I shift? What can I change? How can I redo? How can I revalue? And take Scott's ideas of creating intention. To me, that's where true mastery is, because I know I miss a lot of things. I miss connection, but wow, I'm just as guilty as everyone else. I took a lot of things for granted, went into flow, didn't really think about, wow, live each day like it's your last. I would hit like on memes sometimes, but not every day did I really appreciate the true depths of the fact that I got to go out and experience this planet in this body, living this life. And this to me is a great opportunity now to have that. And Scott, I think in the midst of everything, you just do that at a very good level. So is there one thing that you think right now in your life that once everything is fully up and going within this new paradigm that you're going to address, do differently, and put into work and put into practice? Or a practice that you've learned that you're going to be able to practice more?
Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't know if this experience will necessarily change who I am, because I've spent a lifetime trying to get to this place.
I don't want you to change a thing, and you have.
and yet, invariably, it helps me quite literally think of different people, think of first responders, think of firefighters, think of people who are experiencing so much hardship. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that's the critical piece. Is I'm taking to heart that I don't want to let myself get too comfortable or let my mind focus too much on the same things day after day after day. I'm asking myself to do better, and to, even if it's not all the time, to think and dwell and behave as if the small things mattered. So that's my dedication.
I love it. It's not at the level where you're just setting all New Year's resolutions. It's that the little things are the big things. And if this helps everybody create a sense of oneness and understand the interconnectedness of us all, the juice is worth the squeeze. It's just totally worth it, in my opinion.
Yep, that's a big opportunity.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for taking the time today. Can't wait to connect in person next.
Absolutely.
And I love and appreciate your insight. So for anybody listening who wants to learn more about what you do, connect, or if they're local to San Diego and they want to come check out your practice and enjoy a lot of the benefits that I've been able to have over the years. So what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so my clinic in La Jolla is Emphasis Wellness, and that's withemphasis.com. Emphasis is spelled with an O, so it has the Greek word for light, phos, like photon. I also have a website called Beyond the Muscle, and you can find videos already and different ways of changing how you move, how you breathe. So you can definitely search for me there.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for taking the time today. Totally, totally appreciated. And I would have to say you're doing a great job of transforming from fear to practicing the fit.
Well, pardon me. Thank you, Kyle. And I got to say, it's awesome that there are people like you in this world who are not just living your practice, but you're brave enough to get out and do these videos, do podcasts, do interviews. I mean, so the world needs to hear more of these conversations. So I'm excited you're doing them.
More to come, baby.